Hello and welcome to episode 10 of Your Ageless Musical Brain. My name is Lucelena, and my very special guest today is a sought after speaker at international conferences and symposiums, a program director and founding teacher at Dance for Parkinson's, a program of Mark Morris Dance Group. He serves on the board of Davis Finney Foundation and the Georgetown Lombardi Arts and Humanities Program, as well as the Dance and Creative Wellness Foundation. He is a founding member of the Dance for Health Committee at the International Association of Dance Medicine and Science. David has led classes for people living with Parkinson's disease around the world and has trained more than 2,000 teaching artists in 25 countries in the Dance for Parkinson's disease approach. He received a 2010 Bessie New York Dance and Performance Award for his performing career with Mark Morris Dance Group. David, it's an honor to have you on the show and welcome.
Elena, it is such a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me as your guest.
The pleasure is all mine, David. So, this show creates heightened awareness, David, of how dance, music, and the arts influences and helps benefit our brain health and wellness through the years as we engage in these activities on a consistent basis, meaning long term, which is key. So, with that being said, tell us why it's more crucial now than ever for us to take dance activities more seriously.
Well, I think the first reason is that there's much more research on the impact of dance on the human body and the human brain than we had before. Just in our program alone, there are more than 48 peer-reviewed studies on the impact of dance on people with Parkinson's.
Wow.
And once you start to enlarge dance and into many other populations, you start to see a pretty robust literature on the ways that dance can positively influence physical health, mental well-being, cognitive health, and social belonging and interaction. So as our society becomes more and more complex, and as we are living longer and starting to confront some of the challenges of aging, particularly with the more frequent onset of neurological conditions like Parkinson's and dementia, as we live longer and we're more vulnerable to those conditions, we need all hands on deck for helping all of us age gracefully, age well, and age in partnership with medical treatments, but not only relying on them. So I think the ways that dance and the arts can supplement medical care in maintaining well-being and maintaining physical health, maintaining mental health is really compelling. But going back to the research, when we start to look at some of the data, there was a 21-year study that was funded by the National Institute on Aging. And it found that people who danced a few times a week had a 76% lower risk of dementia.
Wow.
Now, this is a condition that we can't treat very well, right? Medical treatments, pharmaceutical interventions don't really do much for dementia. So if we have an intervention that can help stave off or slow the progression of dementia, that's something we should look at. And it turns out that that's actually dance. When we looked at a 3-year study on people with Parkinson's dancing once a week, we found that a Dance for Parkinson's class significantly slowed symptom progression. Now, that means we can't stop Parkinson's. Parkinson's is a neurodegenerative condition for which there's no cure. But if we can slow down that progression and give people a better quality of life for longer, that's a significant finding, and that's a significant reason to be dancing. But above everything, dancing is enjoyable. It's social. It gets us off of our screens, right? It gets us interacting in the way that we humans are designed to interact with each other and with our bodies and with music. And it's something that we've been doing as a species for millennia. And there's a reason that it survived in us as a species. One of those reasons is because it is such a social connector. It gives us a sense of belonging. And as we fight a pandemic of loneliness in our society across the age spectrum, something like dance can really help to fight against the isolation that I think people of different generations are feeling right now.
Wow, yes. And you said loneliness because we can dance alone as well. And it has great effects on the brain. Um, I um I also realized that thinking preventive from what I'm hearing you explain, then that means that if we think in preventive terms and help ourselves by feeling, if at any moment we feel depressed or feel down, just change your state and move. Wouldn't you say, David?
Changing your
Yeah,
state through
yeah,
movement is
yeah,
is incredibly effective.
yeah,
We see this across the spectrum from uh, kids living on the autism spectrum that I've worked with, from older adults who are quite sedentary. Suddenly, when they start to move and they start to move with music, because I know this podcast is about the musical brain,
yeah,
right? When we become musical beings through our bodies, through dance, it completely changes how we see ourselves, how we see the world around us, and how we're able to cope with challenges. I see this in our Parkinson's dancers every day. People coming into the room with a lot of challenges, a lot of burden of the condition, and leaving with a sense of lightness, a sense of grace, a sense of rhythm that, again, it might last for an hour, might last for a day, might last for the rest of the week, but it does transform. It does make a significant change in how that person is oscillating and vibrating in the world,
yeah.
and sometimes even that change for an hour can reset us to see things differently and to give us a sense of hope.
Yeah, exactly. And also helps with depression, right? To we think about again preventing, right?
Yeah, and we're only just starting to understand the connection between
Yeah,
the body and the brain.
yeah,
We are decades behind where a specialty like cardiology is now, but that's also because the brain is a much more complex organ than the heart, and it takes a lot, many more resources and tools to really understand. But we're starting to see how connected they are, how much the brain influences the body, but also reverse direction, how much the body can influence the brain, particularly in movement. So moving can absolutely change our brains, change how we view ourselves, and change our mood. And that's significant.
right. Yes, absolutely. So, is there a difference, David, between dance medicine and dance science?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, yes, I would say that dance medicine is the specialized field that helps treat dancers, professional or recreational, helps treat dancer injuries in a way that enables them to perform at their highest level. So I would say the equivalent of dance medicine would be sports medicine. In fact, I would say there's a lot of comparison between the two because it takes a special kind of approach to treat dancers who have very specialized injuries and who can't wait to get back to dancing and performing. Dance science is related, but I would say dance science is a much broader field because it incorporates the study of the impact of dance on the body, on the brain, and really understanding the neuroscience of dance. So I would say that the research on dance and Parkinson's is part of dance science, right? That's part
Yeah,
of understanding why dance can be a powerful tool in helping people with neurological and other physical conditions. And that's where we fit into a bigger field. But I wouldn't call our program dance medicine. I would call it perhaps dance as medicine or dance for health, for sure. But dance medicine in the context of the International Association of Dance Medicine and Science is really focused on medicine for dancers.
Awesome. Thank you for that explanation. And aside from helping people improve their motor skills, David, does the dance for Parkinson's approach also help with brain health, for example, such as reinforced learning or remembering a dance move or steps in people with Parkinson's disease?
Yes, it does. We've seen this anecdotally and also in some of the research. So, in addition to physical benefits that include improved balance, improved gait, reduction of tremor, and improved functional mobility through dance participation, we are seeing some research on dance and cognition, particularly as it pertains in Parkinson's to executive function and to episodic memory. So you asked about sort of that idea of remembering steps, and you wouldn't be surprised to hear that yes, in the research we see that dance can actually help people improve their episodic memory. That is, remembering things in a sequence, because dance is a language. When we're dancing, we are moving in movement sentences. And just as I'm speaking now, there's a certain sequence of movements that make a kind of logical sense. It's a sequence that a teacher might teach in a class and then practice several times and then encourage the class to do it together. Now, if somebody does something out of sequence or they change it, that's no problem at all. We are certainly not rigid in our approach to sequencing and episodic memory. In fact, one of the benefits of our program is that we welcome and value all kinds of movement and all kinds of approaches to the movement that we're facilitating in class. It's a very accessible and inclusive approach. But whether you're stringing together 2 moves or 8 moves, you are going through the cognitive process of that kind of sequencing and then having to remember those moves, which is something that is a challenge for people with Parkinson's. And that's why it's something that's really good to work on in class. It gives people a chance to practice those skills and to use devices like imagery or narrative or musical phrasing to help them remember those phrases. We also see that dance, as I said a little earlier, positively impacts psychological symptoms. So some of the research has picked up on changes in anxiety and
Yeah,
depression
yeah,
in Parkinson's, as well as quality of life. These were all significantly improved through a dance for PD intervention. And anxiety and depression are perhaps less obvious in Parkinson's than tremor or balance issues. Those are things that people wear on their bodies. They're very visible. But in some ways, they're more pernicious because we don't see them, and depression and anxiety can dramatically impact somebody's quality of life, the way
yeah,
that they interact with other people in their families,
yeah.
in their communities. So if we can start to address anxiety and depression through movement and dance, then we're really onto something.
Yeah, and you know what too? The fact that people are socializing, right? When they see others dance, they could be dancing by themselves, but seeing others dance, right? Then they don't feel awkward. They feel, that they're part of a group, wouldn't you say? And that actually helps promote a better well-being as opposed to being alone and feeling depressed, wouldn't you say?
Yeah,
The
absolutely.
socialization.
Yeah, the socialization is about knowing that you're not going through this alone.
Yeah,
Now, of course, that can happen also in a support group, but I
yeah,
think there's something really special that happens when we are moving together as a
yeah,
community. There are bonds that form non-verbally
yeah,
when we're moving together to the same rhythm. This sort of rhythmic entrainment as
yeah.
a way of creating community is something that's been studied anthropologically and sociologically. So we know that when we move together as humans to a unified rhythm, we are creating a real sense of connection and sense of belonging. And you feel it when you're in a dance class, even if you're not doing every move the same as everybody else. So, yeah, I think the social part is really huge, particularly with a condition like Parkinson's, where people tend to become more socially isolated. And some of that has to do with being uncomfortable going out in the world. They're not sure if they're going to have difficulty getting back home, or they're not sure if their physicality will be misinterpreted, and people will stare at them, or people will think they're inebriated, right? So there are all kinds of reasons that people with Parkinson's tend to stay out out of the public sphere. But this class is a safe space where they can really feel that they don't have to explain anything to anybody. They are there. They are accepted for who they are. They can share. They can express themselves, and they can really feel that they're part of a community. And I
Yeah.
think there are enormous emotional benefits to that. But we also
Yeah.
use physical, sort of social cues as a physical motivation. So instead of just sticking our arm out, we say, "Can you reach to somebody across the room? Can you
Mm.
pass something to somebody next to you?" Right? So those social cues are also prompting uh, physical activation, and it's kind of this wonderful cycle that happens where social prompts can motivate physical action, and physical action can foster and sustain a sense of social belonging. So it's a beautiful ecosystem.
Yeah, it is. And you just reminded me of Dr. Hannah Poikinen, the neuroscientist that I interviewed in the show. She stressed and she also promotes that idea a lot about how dance helps us, be more sociable and how that promotes brain health and well-being. I like that. Thank you, David. And David, you also co-produced 5 volumes of very successful at-home instructional video series for the program, and you also pioneered a very innovative project named Moving Through Glass, which is a dance-based Google app, I understand, for people with Parkinson's. Could you tell us about this exciting innovation?
Sure. Well, the videos really came about because we realized that there were people who were not able to get to a class, but who still wanted to dance. And so that the videos allowed us to invite them into a class that they could put on in their living room and dance along to. And of course, during the pandemic, that expanded into live interactive video through Zoom, where we and still do have live Zoom classes. Most days of the week for people to engage where they are if they're not able to get to an in-person class. The moving through glass platform or project was really a way for us to explore the possibility of people having a portable movement coach with them wherever they moved. So imagine if you're living with Parkinson's and you encounter something quite common in Parkinson's, which is freezing of gait. That is the inability to take a step forward, the inability of the brain to signal properly the body to take a step, and you end up being stuck on the floor, like your feet are actually glued to the sidewalk. So we thought, well, we know in class that we have effective techniques to help people get moving again, imagery, rhythm, and a sort of a choreographic plan. So we thought, what happened if you take those cues, you put them on a video that somebody can actually wear on a pair of smart glasses, so that
Wow.
when you get frozen, you could say, "Okay, glass, unfreeze me." It's all verbally activated. And then the video will start and it shows you a dancer starting to shift weight from one side to the next.
Yeah.
You'll hear the music and you can actually use this dance based prompt as a way to get moving again.
Yeah, I
So
saw
we have,
that. It's very interesting because, right, it's like surreal. You see, like you see a person in front of you, right?
yeah, you
And
see a
they're the ones that
person.
are guiding the moves. That's very awesome.
Exactly, because we know that when you're living with Parkinson's and you're dealing with some of these challenges, having really strong external cues, visual cues, auditory cues, tactile cues can help you get moving again. And so by seeing a dancer in front of you and by hearing the rhythm, the idea is those are two really strong prompts to help somebody break out of a freeze. This was a prototype, so obviously it's there are definitely some challenges in the technology, but we're really interested in taking this to the next level, and we'd love to find a development team and also a funding team that can help us really explore this idea and make it a usable consumer product for people with Parkinson's that they can actually use in their daily lives and bring the skills and strategies that dancers use into their daily mobility.
Yeah, and that's why I'm so happy you're here, right? To make a difference in in these kinds of communities that needed so much. Shifting a little bit, I'm curious. Since you've been a speaker in different countries, how about Latin America? Have you gone to Latin America to speak? Because we're all about the spicy movements, right? Salsa, and yet in Latin America we also have a lot of people that suffer from Parkinson's, and we have this mentality in Latin America for many years. I want to say stigma, right? That
Mhm.
dance was for the young, and now that I'm older, of course I can't dance. That was when I was young. What can you tell the Latin Americans that are hearing us now, right, about that stigma that has changed?
Yeah, well, I think dance is everybody's right, and I think particularly, um, Latin dance styles are so inviting. Uh they're perfectly designed for older adults, for people with Parkinson's, though perhaps at a slower tempo, because they're rhythmic, they're recognizable, consistent patterns. They deal very much with balance and weight shift. I mean, think about salsa, think about bachata or rumba. Like all of these styles incorporate weight shift. There has been a lot of study and research on Argentine tango and Parkinson's, because Argentine tango is a walking dance that focuses on balance. It requires awareness of balance and directional shift at all times. It's improvisatory, so we need to be able to be very present in our bodies as we're making those choices. So, um, and uh, people living in Latin American countries are blessed with incredibly rich musical traditions, music that is really dance music,
Yeah,
among other things. So these rhythms are supportive. We use them in our class, even when we're not doing Latin dance moves,
yeah,
because those rhythms and the quality of complex syncopated rhythms that are coming out of the Latin American tradition are incredibly inspiring for dancing. So I think there's this rich cultural tradition. I would love to see more dance for older adults and more dance for Parkinson's in Central and South America, and North America, of course, because Mexico is in North America.
right.
But we're starting to see more interest. We're starting to see more people train with us. There are currently programs in Venezuela, in Brazil, um, but we want to see more. We do offer a weekly program in Spanish
Oh,
that is offered
really?
on Zoom, and
Oh,
we have
wow.
participants, and those classes, which are offered every Wednesday, incorporate Latin dance styles, Latin music. They're taught by bilingual teachers who are incorporating these styles, and we are welcoming in participants from the U.S., Mexico, Guatemala, Ecuador, Peru, Chile,
Really?
Colombia,
Oh,
all
wow.
over the
Mm.
Spanish-speaking world. So that's a way that people can start to engage. But we'd really like to have more community-based programming um, uh, in Latin America. So
Wow.
I'm hoping
I
this will create a spark.
Oh, of course. And speaking of that too, I just started my Your Ageless Musical Brain version in Spanish as a podcast. I just started. Yeah. So that's a great idea, right? So we can continue creating value to communities in Latin America as well. And you know what? The Afro-Cuban beat, the African beat, right, is also another one that intrigues me a lot as to how the brain is triggered, like a certain part of the brain that is triggered in EEG scans when people are dancing fast-paced dance
Mm.
music of any kind. So shifting a little bit, right? The whole idea, right, that I always promote is start as young as you can. And because you are older, it doesn't mean that you have to stop, right? It doesn't mean that. On the contrary, you have to continue. You have to continue because, it does promote neuroplasticity in the long run.
Yeah. It also means, I think, that we can start dancing at any age. And
Mhm.
I know that that's true because we have a number of people in our Parkinson's classes who have never danced before, and they're starting at age 70. And some of
Wow.
them, you talked about the stigma of dance. I think I think a lot of them have lived that through their lives, particularly men, particularly men in the United States who are not accustomed to dancing, and for whom it might have been something that they never thought about. But now that they're diagnosed with Parkinson's and their doctor tells them that they should be dancing, they're they're fully into the class. I mean, they're all in and fully committed. They never miss a class, and they ask me, how did I never discover this before? Why has dance never been part of my life before? So, I'm so happy to hear that, but I'm sad as well because I think about the ways that dance could have changed their lives
Yeah,
50 years ago. But
exactly.
I am glad that they've engaged it now, and people tell me time and time again they're so glad that they've been able to find dance through Parkinson's, because otherwise they probably never would have entered this world, and it's a beautiful world.
Yeah, yeah. So, what message do you have for those that say, I can't dance because I'm not musical?
Mm.
Interesting.
Well, I can say that even though we feel that we're not musical, our brains are actually wired for music. We're one of the few species, right, that actually is
That's the human
wired
DNA, right? It's in our human
musically.
DNA, right?
You don't have to know it or like it or have any training in it. It's in the brain. It's in there already. So the question is, how do I get out of my own way
Yeah,
with my own hangups about dancing or not feeling comfortable with a beat and just allow myself to feel free in that class
yeah.
and
To
think
release
about
inhibitions, right?
that's
Release our
that's really what
inhibitions.
it's
That's
about.
what it is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
leave the ego outside. No one
yeah.
in this class is judging you. I mean, that's one of the beautiful things about the Dance for PD class. No one is judging you. The participants aren't judging you. The teachers aren't judging you. No one. You're there just for you. It's something you can do for yourself. And we encourage people who've just walked in to just explore it. Just do what feels good. If you're shy or you don't feel like doing everything, no problem. Just sit and listen to the music. Enjoy the
Yeah,
music. We have live music in most of our classes in New York. And so there's great music going on. Enjoy the social interaction, do a few moves, and that's it. And what we find is over time, people start to do more and more because they start to feel less inhibited and more comfortable. But really, we all are born dancing, or at least we dance as kids. We don't really think about it. And then
yeah,
at some point, we feel the pressure of society saying, that's not for you.
yeah,
Well, who is saying that? Why are people saying that? Dance is incredible, an incredible human gift. It's something that we can do. Very few
yeah.
species have that
Mhm.
gift. And now that we know that it's also really good for us, we should all be dancing. It's
Yeah,
that simple.
absolutely, right? Promote the joy. David, it's been such a pleasure having you on the show. Awesome. And I look forward to more of these kinds of conversations so that we can promote this learning that so many people need to become more and more aware, and get rid of the stigma that for many, many years, dance has meant in different parts of the world. Thank you so much. And you have a website?
We do have a website, danceforpd.org.
Thank you so much, David. We'll be talking very soon.
Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Oh, thank you. It's been an honor. Take care. Bye bye.
Bye.